This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today's video is part 2 of smoking pork ribs. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, which is the preparation and seasoning phase, check that link out right here and go watch that video first. But if you have, let's go ahead and get right into it. As you recall, we have seasoned all this up and it's ready to go into the smoker. Previously, I preheated my smoker to 225 degrees. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open the smoker up. Make sure that it doesn't need to be scrubbed down again because sometimes you have to brush it twice. Then, I'm going to take the largest, fattest piece and I'm going to put that towards the warmest spot in the smoker. Now, if you saw my biscuit test, you would know that this smoker is hotter on this side corner than on the other side, but not by a lot. So we're not too worried about that. And if you are, you can stuff a small cookie sheet in there or some tin foil and it'll disperse that heat evenly. Go ahead and put the other one in here. And just like that, they are set up and ready to go. Now, of course, all the cuttings from the full spare rib I have right here and all seasoned, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw those in there with the boniest pieces towards the hot side. And there you go. You see them all loaded in there. This is a good opportunity to check and see if you knocked any of the seasoning off of the ribs. You can easily take and put just a little bit more seasoning wherever you might have put a finger mark or where it just didn't get enough seasoning previously. And pat it in just like normal, and voila, you're done. Go ahead and close that. And with this smoker, I like to preheat it to 225 and then turn it up to 235 after I load the ribs. That way, it'll kick the motor on and it'll go full speed. So let's go ahead and do that. Now the smoker is kicked on at full speed. That fan will stoke the fire and get it up to temperature for 235, which is our actual intended cooking temperature. Now that the smoker has come up to temperature, it's really important that you keep it consistent throughout the cook. This will give you a really good idea on how long it's going to take to complete the cook and also allow for very even cooking and good smoke penetration. I would be remiss if I did not mention to you water pans. Now, I don't use water pans or anything that would generate extra moisture in my smoker. I have tested it and I do not believe in that at all. But if you do and you want to, this would be a good time to add a cookie sheet in the bottom with some boiling hot water. Heat your water up. You can do it in the microwave or you can do it on the stovetop and pour 2 cups in there, and don't forget to put in a couple tablespoons of olive oil or vegetable oil, so that way if the water runs dry, you won't get anything burning in the bottom of your pan. Another tip that I have is adding wood to your smoker. Now, if you're doing a smoker that's running completely off wood, I would recommend using something mild, maybe an apple wood or cherry or something like that. They both pair really well with pork ribs. If you're adding wood chunks to charcoal or other things, hickory is a really good choice. You can use mesquite as long as you go sparingly. Just try not to overdo it because it can get a little overwhelming. My personal favorite is pecan, whether it's wood chunks added or if it's complete cuts for a full burn of just pecan wood. When you're using wood or adding fuel to your smoker, be careful because you don't want excessive smoke. So if you need to, for some smokers, you might light the wood on the side, get it going, and then add it to your smoker in small amounts, which I do with my offset by using a small Weber grill on the ground next to it. You can also add 1 chunk at a time. Once it's lit and going well, just add more into it. Remember that if it's pushing out a bunch of white smoke, that is dirty smoke, and that will leave a bitter taste in your meat, and you don't want to do that. One final note before we take our break is always put your ribs in arch side up or meat side up. And the reason is then you won't have pulling on the top. If you put them upside down in there, it seems like a good idea, but in the beginning, you don't want that because you want your bark to get dry and attached to the meat so that way it sticks on through the rest of the process. If you want to flip them over later in the process, you can do that. Typically, I just do that when I wrap ribs, if I wrap them. So now, let's go ahead and take a 1 hour break. That'll just be 1 second for you. It has been an hour and we are back. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to spritz the ribs. This is how I keep the surface of the ribs from getting too hard and crusty. Now, you're basically putting a light liquid on. There's 2 ways that I like to do this. My first and easiest way is simply some olive oil spray. You just spray it on there and it gets the surface to stay moist and it adds a little bit of oil. And if that's going to be a problem for you, then you probably want to go with the other method. But if you go really light, this will keep the surface moist and it will also be easy to do, and you can just use your regular spray olive oil. Don't use vegetable oil. If you're going to use something else, consider something a little healthier like avocado oil or something like that. For the spritz that we're going to make today, first thing we're going to do is we put a 1/4 cup of water in here. Then we're going to add a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. This one just happens to be an unfiltered, but that's completely up to you. I love these measuring cups with all the marks right on them, and then I don't have to worry about getting out 2 or 3 measuring cups. Makes it so much easier. Then just a regular store brand apple juice will work great for this. And just like that, we have 3/4 of a cup of spritz. Now I'm going to go ahead and just pour it in here and then give it a little shake to mix it. Something I like to do is when I'm cleaning this out is I like to leave just a little bit of water in it, which helps it prime. A couple of squirts, and there it is. Go ahead and open that up. We're going to put the spritz on the store trimmed St. Louis ribs, and we'll go ahead and switch over here. And we'll do it on the bottom ones also. Then we'll take the oil and put it on the ones that we trimmed ourselves. You see how easy that oil was to do, and we're just done. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that for a minute. The next thing that we want to do is we're about ready to start monitoring the temperature. Now, our goal for our temperature is in between 192 and 196 degrees. If we go near the top end, our meat will be softer, and down near the bottom end or even lower, and it'll be firmer. If you're going to go for a long rest, I recommend pulling it at about 190 because then the long rest will give it time to break down a little bit more, and it'll still end up being soft. I like my meat on the firmer side, so if you like yours, whichever direction, softer or firmer, you adjust that temperature to suit you. If you come up to these temperatures really slowly with a cooking temperature of 235 or 225, you can really dial that finished temperature in pretty well. Let's go ahead and open it back up, and then we're going to take this, which is our probe thermometer, and we're going to try to get it in between 2 of the ribs. Now remember that any probe thermometer will work really well, but the wireless ones are thicker and have a hard time with ribs. Got it in there, and you can see right into the middle. We'll go ahead and close that. And keep in mind, you can also use instant read thermometers, but every time you do it, you'll have to open it. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I think she's just about ready for a new battery. And we are at 136 degrees internal. So I think that we're headed right along perfectly for a 3-hour cook. When this gets up to the 170 range, 175, we'll wrap that one for a little while. But we're not going to wrap the other one. I prefer unwrapped for myself. So that'll be about an hour, which will only be 1 second for you. So the temperature has reached 174 degrees. We'll go ahead and open that because I'm not really wanting it to go a lot higher. I'm going to go ahead and use the Lightning instant read thermometer on these back ones. See if I can get between the bone here. And we've got 170 on that one. That's great. I was worried it was going to be a little higher. Go ahead and close that, put it away. So this front rack ribs that was pre-trimmed from the store, we're going to do a foil wrap, which is sometimes referred to as a Texas crutch in the brisket world, but also it's the step 2 in a 3-2-1 rib method. We'll go ahead and get a piece of foil out and get that ready. Going to use the thermometer to keep the wind from blowing it away. Then what we have is the same measuring cup. I rinsed it out with a little bit of apple juice, and we're going to fill that with about a half a cup and not more of apple juice. Next, we're going to take about a tablespoon of the same dry rub that we used earlier. Got about that right there, maybe a little over. Put that in there. Going to give it a little bit of a mix because I want to make sure it gets hydrated. Then I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of my favorite store-bought barbecue sauce. If you want to make your own barbecue sauce, by all means do so. I prefer this brand. These cups are great with the measurements on the side because you can literally watch it go up and see that you've got your 2 tablespoons. I'm going to give it a mix. Now that I've got my gloves on, I go ahead and remove that. That will be hot, so if you're sensitive at all, be careful. Then I'm going to take this out, set it here. I'm going to give it just a light spritz. I want to get a little bit of that apple cider vinegar in there without overdoing it. Then I'm going to flip it over and try to keep it in the middle as much as possible. Go ahead and close that up like that. Nice and tight. One. Nice and tight. You don't want to push into the bones because that'll cut the foil and it'll defeat the whole purpose of making this package. The idea is that we're trying to seal the juices in. We don't need to be tight against the ends. We just need to be sealed. That one's done. Then we'll give us a little bend. The idea here is to create a small funnel. Give this one final stir and pour it in. Now about a half a cup is all I want to go with because I don't want to overdo it. I still want some of the juices from the meat to play an important role in the flavoring. Get that sealed. Push that down. And then carefully set it in the smoker, but don't drag it around. I like to give it a little bit of a run like that. Set it right in there and then reseal it. Now, as far as the other rack of ribs goes, I like to turn it at this point. That way we know that it gets done very evenly. And then after I turn the camera off, I'll go ahead and flip those again. So at this point, we just need this to keep going until we get to the 192 degree range. I will go ahead after about 30 minutes and reinsert that thermometer, but for now, I want to leave it sealed up as much as possible. So I'll be back in 30 minutes for me and 1 second for you. So it's been another half an hour and we're ready to go on to the next step. So let's go ahead and open this up. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check the temperature on that back rack really quick. We want to make sure that we don't go over. Oh, we're just fine, so we'll go ahead and leave that in there. And now we're going to go ahead and check the temperature on the one in the wrap. Oh, and that one looks great. We're going to go ahead and pull that out. We can close that. Going to open this up. And I want you to see all this juice that's in here. I'm going to go ahead and dump that out. We're not saving that for anything. Now I'm going to go ahead and return it back to the smoker. We'll go ahead and let that rest in there. Now that is a wrap for the cooking part of the video. Next video that's going to be up is going to be the finishing video. And that includes things like resting and sauce and that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching the video. If you're looking for the playlist for all the ribs, that'll be right here. And if you're looking for a link to the next video, that'll be right here. Thanks again and have a great day.